What happens to the value over the course of time if your population expands? Okay, so well, right now we don't have an expanding population or an expanding economy. An economy is just people, it's not expanding. But to your question of like, well, what if we have a fixed currency such as gold, and you're using this as an example, and I use it as an example all the time because historically it's a very good teaching tool. There's better examples today, but people have to understand the past before they go into the future, right? Ideally, you understand the past before you go into the future, because otherwise you'll just repeat the mistakes of the past. So, in the case of gold, let's use your example. What happens is that your spending power increases. So let's say that the number of people, the economy starts expanding, which means that the birth rate is increasing. What that means is that your spending power of the amount of gold that you've saved increases. That's all it means. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't change the outcome. It just means that if you saved money, for example, let's say that you worked you worked at your job, whatever it is, or you worked at your business. You owned you made shoes for a living. I don't know, whatever. And you just decided to save some money. You didn't spend every bloody penny that you got the minute you got it. Instead, you saved it. So because you saved it, then a little later on as the economy expands, but the money supply doesn't expand, then that means your purchasing power increases. Now you could say like, well, but that creates huge amounts of wealth. It can for some people. Yeah, if you didn't spend any money, if you didn't take on a bunch of debt, which you shouldn't anyway. I mean, I would argue most people really probably should not be taking on lots and lots of debt. We live in a debt-based currency system right now, and so people do what you got to do to survive. But overall, you ideally wouldn't want to take on enormous amounts of debt. You would want to just use sort of the delayed gratification thing, and just say, hey, I'm just going to save my money and just pay cash, right? Cash in the generic sense, not dollar bills. Okay, so. Yeah, that's all that would happen, is that your spending power just increases over time. Now, conversely, let's say that the population continues to decline. And let's say that the population were to decline to half of what it is right now. Now, hopefully it doesn't do that, but let's say it did, for the sake of argument, right? Just over the course of the next 50, 100 years, the population just doesn't expand. In fact, it continues to decline. Well, then your purchasing power maybe decreases a little bit. But at the same time, there's also a lot more resources available because there just isn't as many people consuming the resources, right? There's an ebb and a flow there. There's a balance to, like, look, Earth is not going to let you destroy it. I tell my customers stuff like this all the time. Like the machines that we sell, they're not going to let you destroy it. You'd have to go hit it with a sledgehammer. If you run out of oil, it's just going to stop. If it runs out of juice, it's just going to stop. It's not going to explode. It's not going to do anything. It's not going to, you know what I mean? The machine is designed to protect itself. Earth is designed to protect itself, and I have to be very careful how I say this stuff because, of course, these videos get nuked as soon as I go into too much of how the planet works. For some reason, my videos, if I talk about that, any kind of tectonic issues, my videos just get nuked. So I won't do that, but I will point out that Earth as a planet is not going to let you destroy it. Earth will destroy you first before you get to that point. Right? That's kind of how it works. This is sort of a safety mechanism if you want to think about it like that. Remember, it only takes a few tectonic shifts. Not very many at one time, and this whole thing is gone in about 10 to 15 minutes. It doesn't take long. So, yeah, I mean, but no, as far as your purchasing power, no, it just goes up. That's all it is. And if the other side goes the other direction and there's just no population growth, or it just continues, people decide they only want to have one kid each instead of 2 or 3, 2.1 is replacement, well, then that means that your purchasing power goes down a little bit. But at the same time, there's also a lot more stuff available. So the prices on all that, because there isn't as much demand, they adjust accordingly. I hope that makes sense.